The black janitor fixed the engine they swore was impossible. Then the director. Marcus Anthony Jenkins never imagined his life would change completely that Tuesday in March. He had worked for 12 years as a janitor at American Motors Inc., a company in Dearborn specializing in industrial engines, and had always been content to do his job quietly. That was when he heard the desperate shouts coming from the engineering lab. The engine the company had promised to deliver to the Japanese automaker, Yamamoto Industries, had a defect that none of the 6 engineers could solve. "This is impossible," yelled the technical director, Richard Thompson. "You have until Thursday, or we lose the $20 million contract." Marcus stopped wiping the hallway. Through the slightly open door, he saw the sweaty men in suits, nervously shuffling papers and pointing at an engine making a strange noise. "Mr. Richard, we've tried everything," said one of the younger engineers, Brian Miller. "The problem is in the piston timing, but we can't pinpoint exactly where." Richard slammed his fist on the table. "Then try again. I won't explain to Yamamoto's president that our company can't solve a basic problem." Marcus knew that sound well. On weekends, when the factory was empty, he used to tinker with the old engines in the storage room, just out of curiosity. His father, who had worked 30 years as a mechanic, always said an engine had a soul, and if you listened carefully, you'd find out what was wrong. That night, after everyone left, Marcus grabbed his flashlight and went to the lab. The door was locked, but he had access to all the keys as the head custodian. The engine sat on a workbench, imposing and silent. Marcus turned it on and listened closely. The noise came from the back, a metallic sound that shouldn't be there. 3 hours later, Marcus had found the problem, a poorly fitted part causing excessive vibration. Carefully, he adjusted the component and tested it again. The engine ran perfectly. The next morning, Richard arrived early and found Marcus finishing up his cleaning. "What are you doing here?" he asked suspiciously. "Morning cleaning, Mr. Richard. I always do this at 7. Richard walked over to the engine and on impulse decided to start it again. To his shock, the machine ran without a single strange noise. How is this possible?" he muttered, baffled. Marcus pretended not to hear and kept wiping the workbenches. Richard urgently called the entire engineering team. "Guys, I don't know how, but the engine is working perfectly," he announced, thrilled. The engineers exchanged confused glances. Brian was the first to speak. "But Mr. Richard, last night it still had the same issue." "Maybe you adjusted something without realizing," Richard suggested. "The important thing is that it's running now." Marcus watched silently. He knew he should speak up, but he also knew the company culture well. In his 12 years there, he'd never seen an employee without a college degree get promoted or have their ideas taken seriously. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. 2 weeks later, the same thing happened again. This time, it was an even more complex engine, meant for a mining company in West Virginia. The engineers had spent 3 days trying to fix an overheating issue. "This doesn't make sense," Brian complained, exhausted. "All the calculations are correct, but the engine keeps overheating." Richard paced back and forth, visibly stressed. The deadline was even tighter this time. "If we don't fix this by tomorrow, we'll have to return the advance payment," he said, scratching his head. "That's $2 million the company doesn't have to give back right now." Once again, Marcus waited until everyone left and went to the lab. This time, the problem was different. The cooling system was working, but there was an almost imperceptible blockage in one of the ducts. He worked carefully through the night, disassembling part of the system and cleaning each component. When he finished, he tested the engine for 2 straight hours. The temperature remained stable. The next morning, Richard nearly fainted when he saw the engine running perfectly. "This is impossible," he exclaimed. "Did you all work through the night?" The engineers denied it, equally surprised. Brian looked around and noticed Marcus organizing tools in the corner of the room. "Mr. Richard," Brian said quietly, "Marcus was here early today. Maybe he saw something." Richard turned to Marcus with a piercing look. "Marcus, did you see anyone working on the engine last night?" "No, Mr. Richard. I got here at 6 like always and it was already running." Richard wasn't convinced, but he couldn't prove anything. The important thing was that the problem had been solved. At lunch, Brian approached Marcus in the cafeteria. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Sure, Brian." "Do you know about engines?" Marcus hesitated for a moment. Brian had always been the kindest engineer to him, never treating him like he was invisible. "A little. My father was a mechanic. It's just that I keep thinking, two engines with different problems and both fix themselves overnight." "Sometimes that happens," Marcus said, avoiding eye contact. Brian realized he wouldn't get more information, but a suspicion started growing in his mind. 3 days later, the biggest challenge arrived. An export engine worth $15 million. It was a special project, developed exclusively for an American company. This time, the problem was more complex. The engine ran but didn't meet the power output specified in the contract. It was falling 20% short. "This will ruin the company," Richard shouted in a meeting with all employees. "If we don't fix this, we'll have to return all the money and pay a penalty for breach of contract." The tension in the company was palpable. Employees whispered in the halls about possible mass layoffs. Marcus saw the desperation on his co-workers' faces. Many of them had families to support. That night he entered the lab again. The problem was truly complex. The cylinder configuration was technically correct but not optimized. It required millimeter-perfect adjustments to multiple components. Marcus worked until dawn, using knowledge he'd gained not just from his father, but from years of observation and self-study. He had a collection of used technical manuals he studied in his free time. When he finished, the engine not only met the required power output, it exceeded it by 5%. Richard arrived the next morning with a representative from the American company. When they tested the engine, the American was impressed. "Exceptional," he said in English. "The power output is even higher than expected." Richard smiled in relief, but his eyes locked onto Marcus, who was mopping the floor in the corner. This time, the suspicion was too strong to ignore. After the American left, Richard called Marcus into his office for a private talk. "Marcus, I need to speak with you." "Yes, Mr. Richard." "Have a seat." Richard closed the door. 3 engines, 3 different problems, 3 miracle fixes, and you're always nearby." Marcus felt his heart race. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Marcus, I'm not stupid. You're fixing the engines, aren't you?" The silence filled the room. Marcus knew the moment of truth had arrived. I just wanted to help," he finally said. Richard leaned back in his chair, processing the information. "How did you learn to do this?" "From my father at first, then on my own. I study, read manuals." "Why didn't you say anything before?" Marcus looked down at his hands. Who would believe a black janitor without a degree? The answer hit Richard like a punch. He knew Marcus was right. "Marcus, you've saved the company 3 times. You know that?" "I just didn't want to see everyone lose their jobs." Richard stayed silent for a few minutes, clearly conflicted. "Listen, Marcus, I'm going to ask you something. Don't tell anyone about this, okay? The situation is complicated." "Of course, Mr. Thompson." "And Marcus, thank you." Marcus left the room with mixed feelings. On one hand, he was relieved to have been discovered and not fired. On the other, he felt a pang of sadness at having to keep his talent a secret. In the following days, Richard called a meeting with the engineering team. "Folks, I want to congratulate you on the excellent work on the recent projects," he said. "The company has decided to give the entire technical team a bonus." The engineers celebrated, but Brian couldn't shake the feeling something wasn't right. He knew he hadn't solved those problems. That afternoon, Brian decided to stay late at the company and observe. He hid in a room near the lab and waited. Around 11 at night, he saw Marcus enter the lab with his flashlight. Brian followed silently and peeked through the door crack. He was shocked to see Marcus working on the engine with surgical precision, making adjustments he himself wouldn't know how to do. He watched for over an hour as Marcus solved in minutes problems the entire team had spent days trying to fix. The next morning, Brian was confused and conflicted. Part of him wanted to confront Marcus. Another part feared the consequences of exposing the truth. During coffee break, he approached Marcus again. "Marcus, can I ask you something straight?" Sure. Do you have an engineering degree? Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. Why are you asking that? It's just, I've noticed some things. Marcus realized Brian knew something. He decided to trust him. Brian, can you keep a secret? I can. I studied mechanical engineering at the Michigan Institute of Technology. I graduated 8 years ago. Brian's eyes widened. What? Then why are you working as a janitor? Because when I graduated, I sent my resume to dozens of companies. I couldn't even get an interview. After 2 years unemployed, I took this job so my mother wouldn't go without. But you could have talked to Richard. Brian, do you think if I'd walked up to Richard 12 years ago and said I was an engineer, he would have believed me? A young black man from the South Side? Brian didn't know how to respond. Deep down, he knew Marcus was right. And now? Brian asked. Now I keep doing my cleaning during the day and helping the company at night, with no one knowing. That's not right, Marcus. Maybe not, but it's reality. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 weeks later, the company received a visit that would change everything. Takashi Yamamoto himself came to the United States to see the factory that had produced the exceptional engine for his automaker. Richard was nervous. It was the first time he'd hosted the president of such a prestigious Japanese company. Mr. Yamamoto, welcome to American Motors, Inc., Richard said in English. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I'm very impressed with the quality of the engine you've produced. We'd like to place a much larger order. Richard smiled proudly. It would be our pleasure to serve you. But first, Yamamoto continued, we'd like to see the production process and meet the responsible team. Richard guided Yamamoto and his entourage through the lab, introducing each engineer. Marcus was quietly sweeping in a corner, practically invisible. And this engine here, Richard said, pointing to their latest creation, was developed by our elite team. Yamamoto approached the engine and examined it carefully. His trained eyes noticed details Richard hadn't even imagined. Interesting, Yamamoto murmured. This combustion system optimization is very sophisticated. Whose idea was this? Richard looked at the engineers, who exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. It was a team effort, Richard said vaguely. Yamamoto wasn't satisfied with the answer, but didn't press further. As he continued inspecting the engine, something caught his attention. This piston balancing technique is highly advanced. Where did you learn this? Again, an awkward silence fell over the engineering team. Then, Yamamoto heard a strange noise coming from the engine, a nearly imperceptible sound his trained ear caught immediately. Excuse me, but there's a small issue with this engine, he said. Richard paled. What do you mean, Mr. Yamamoto? Listen carefully. There's an abnormal vibration in the third cylinder. It's very subtle, but it could cause serious problems over time. The engineers gathered around and started the engine, but none could hear what Yamamoto had detected. I don't hear anything unusual, Brian admitted honestly. Neither do I, another engineer confirmed. Yamamoto shook his head, concerned. This is a serious problem. If you can't detect such basic flaws, how can I trust you with larger orders? Richard panicked. The billion-dollar deal was crumbling before his eyes. Just then, Marcus, who had overheard everything from his corner, quietly approached the group. Excuse me, he said timidly. Richard glared at him. Marcus, not now. We're busy. It's just, I can hear the noise the Japanese gentleman mentioned, Marcus said, looking at Yamamoto. Everyone turned to Marcus, surprised. Yamamoto raised an eyebrow. You can hear it? Yes, sir. It's a very faint metallic sound coming from the rear of the third cylinder, probably a microscopic gap in one of the bearings. Yamamoto was impressed. Richard flushed with anger and embarrassment. Marcus, get back to work, he hissed, but Yamamoto raised a hand. Wait. Young man, what's your role here? I'm the janitor, sir. And where did you learn about engines? Marcus glanced at Richard, who was signaling him to stay quiet. From my father, sir. He was a mechanic. Yamamoto turned to Richard. Mr. Thompson, this man is right about the defect. And apparently, He has more technical knowledge than your engineering team. Why isn't he part of the technical staff? Richard didn't know what to say. He was sweating. Well, he's very good at his job as a janitor. Mr. Thompson, Yamamoto said firmly, in Japan we value talent regardless of background. If this man has superior technical knowledge, why isn't he an engineer? He doesn't have a degree, Richard said desperately. Marcus took a deep breath and made a decision that would change his life forever. Actually, I have a degree in mechanical engineering from the Michigan Institute of Technology. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard turned white. The engineers stared in shock. Yamamoto smiled slightly. Interesting, he said. Mr. Thompson, it seems we have much to discuss. Richard tried to control the situation. Mr. Yamamoto, it's complicated. It doesn't seem complicated to me, Yamamoto interrupted. It seems you have a talented engineer working as a janitor. Why? Marcus decided to tell the whole truth. Mr. Yamamoto, when I graduated, I looked for a job for 2 years. I never even got an interview. I ended up taking this job to support my mother. And since then, you've been working as a janitor. Yes, sir, but Marcus glanced at Richard. Sometimes I helped with technical problems, informally. Yamamoto turned to Richard with a stern look. Mr. Thompson, how many of the technical issues in recent months were solved by this man? Richard was cornered. He knew he couldn't lie to Yamamoto. A few, he admitted reluctantly. A few. Brian couldn't stay quiet. Mr. Yamamoto, Marcus solved every complex problem in the last 3 months, alone in the middle of the night. Richard shot Brian a murderous look, but the damage was done. Yamamoto crossed his arms. Let me get this straight. You have a trained engineer with exceptional talent, solving your toughest problems, and you keep him as a janitor. Mr. Yamamoto, the situation is more complex than it seems. To me, it's very clear, Yamamoto said sharply, and unfortunately, it reflects the kind of management you practice. Richard realized he was losing control of the situation. Mr. Yamamoto, please, let's talk in private. No need, Yamamoto said. Young man, he addressed Marcus, could you fix this issue you detected? Yes, sir, it would take about 2 hours. Then do it now. Richard tried to intervene. Mr. Yamamoto, we can't just... Mr. Thompson, this man has more technical skill than your entire team combined. If he can fix the problem, we'll have a very serious conversation about the future of our business. Marcus looked at Richard, who reluctantly nodded. He had no choice. For the next 2 hours, Marcus worked on the engine while Yamamoto and his team watched every move. Marcus's technical knowledge impressed even the Japanese engineers accompanying Yamamoto. When he finished, Marcus tested the engine. The noise was completely gone. Perfect, Yamamoto said, satisfied. Mr. Thompson, this man saved our deal. Richard forced a smile. Glad we could resolve it. No, Mr. Thompson, this man resolved it. Your team of engineers couldn't even hear the issue. Yamamoto turned to Marcus. Young man, what's your full name? Marcus Anthony Jenkins, sir. Mr. Jenkins, I have a proposal for you. Our company in Japan is looking for talented engineers. Would you be interested in working with us? The shock of the proposal left everyone speechless. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. Mr. Yamamoto, it would be an honor, but... I don't speak Japanese. Yamamoto smiled. That's not a problem. We have training programs. What matters is talent, and you clearly have it. Richard panicked. Losing Marcus to the competition would be a disaster. Mr. Yamamoto, maybe we can resolve this here. How about I promote Marcus to the engineering team? Yamamoto looked at Richard with disdain. Now that it's convenient, isn't it? Where was this offer for the last 12 years? Mr. Yamamoto, I admit we made a mistake. A mistake? Yamamoto raised his voice. You wasted this man's talent for over a decade, and only now, when he can go elsewhere, do you want to value him? Marcus was at the center of a negotiation he never imagined he'd be part of. On one side, the company he'd worked at for 12 years offering a belated promotion. On the other, an international opportunity that seemed like a dream. Mr. Yamamoto, said Marcus. Can I have some time to think? Of course, but not too long. We're returning to Japan next week. After Yamamoto and his delegation left, Richard called an emergency meeting with the board. Everyone, we have a very serious problem, he said. Marcus is considering accepting the Japanese offer. And what's the issue? Asked the CFO. He's just a janitor. No, he's not just a janitor, Richard snapped. He's responsible for all our technical successes these past few months. If he leaves, we're screwed. The meeting lasted 3 hours. In the end, they decided to make Marcus an offer he couldn't refuse. Promotion to senior engineer, a salary of $15,000, profit sharing, and a $50,000 bonus for his recent contributions. The next day, Richard called Marcus into a meeting. Marcus, I want to make you an offer. Marcus listened quietly to the entire proposal. So? Richard asked. It's a very good offer. It is, Mr. Thompson, but I have some questions. Of course. Why only now? Richard sighed. Marcus, I know we made a mistake, but sometimes companies take time to recognize talent. What matters is we're recognizing it now. And if Mr. Yamamoto hadn't shown up, would I still be a janitor? Richard had no answer. Marcus, we can't change the past, but we can change the future. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to accept the Japanese offer. Richard turned pale. Marcus, for God's sake, think of your mother, your friends here. Japan is on the other side of the world. That's exactly why I'm accepting. There, I'll be valued for what I know, not in spite of how I look. Richard tried to argue, but realized Marcus had made up his mind. The following week, when Yamamoto returned for his answer, Marcus accepted the Japanese offer. Excellent decision, Mr. Jenkins, Yamamoto said. We'll start with a 2-year contract. If you like it, you can stay permanently. Before leaving for Japan, Marcus had one last conversation with Brian. Brian, thank you for always being kind to me. Marcus, I should be thanking you. You taught me that talent has no color or social standing, and you taught me that good people exist everywhere. Marcus also spoke with Betty, the cafeteria cook, who had always treated him like a son. My boy, you'll be dearly missed here, she said, tears in her eyes. Betty, you've been like a mother to me all these years. I'll carry you in my heart. On his last day at the company, Marcus went through every department saying goodbye. Many employees were surprised to learn the janitor was actually a trained engineer. Richard made one final plea. Marcus, there's still time to change your mind. I can improve the offer. Mr. Thompson, it's not about money. It's about respect. But you've always been respected here. Respected as a janitor, not as an engineer. There's a difference. Richard lowered his head. Deep down, he knew Marcus was right. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now back to the story. At the airport, Marcus was accompanied by his mother, Dorothy, a 68-year-old woman who had raised him alone after her husband passed away. My son, are you sure this is what you want? She asked, worried. Mum, I've dreamed my whole life of working as an engineer. Now I have that chance. But it's so far. Mum, these 2 years will fly by, and I'll send you money every month. It's not the money I'm worried about, son. It's you being alone in a strange country. Marcus hugged his mother. Mom, you taught me that sometimes we have to be brave to change our lives. Dorothy cried, but deep down she was proud of her son's courage. In Japan, Marcus faced many challenges. The language was difficult, the culture was very different, and at first he felt lost. But Yamamoto kept every promise. Marcus was placed on an elite team, received intensive Japanese training, and was treated with the respect he deserved. Within 6 months, Marcus had mastered the basics of the language and adapted well to Japanese culture. His technical skills impressed all his colleagues. A year later, Marcus got a call from Brian. Marcus, how are you? Brian, I've missed you. I'm doing great. So how are things over there? Man, the company almost went under after you left. What do you mean? The problems came back. Without you to solve them, the engineers couldn't deliver projects on time. We lost 3 big contracts. And Richard? He was fired. The board blamed him for letting you go. Marcus felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction that his importance was finally recognized, sadness for his former colleague's situation. Brian, tell me something. Did you learn anything from all this? I learned a lot, Marcus. Now I treat every employee with respect, no matter their position. And I'm always on the lookout for hidden talent. That's good to hear. Marcus, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Have you ever thought about coming back? To American Motors, Inc.? No, to the United States. Starting your own business, something like that. Marcus grew thoughtful. Sometimes I think about it, but it's not the right time yet. 2 years later, as agreed, Marcus had to decide whether to stay permanently in Japan or return to the United States. By then, he had become one of the most respected engineers at Yamamoto Industries. He had led major projects and received rapid promotions. Yamamoto called him in for a meeting. Marcus, it's time to decide your future with us. Yes, Mr. Yamamoto. I'd like to offer you the position of technical director for our new branch opening in the United States. Marcus was surprised. A branch in the US? Yes. We've decided to expand into South America, and the US will be our base. We want you to lead the project. It was the perfect opportunity, returning to the US, but now as an executive of a globally respected Japanese company. Mr. Yamamoto, it would be an honor. Excellent. You'll have full autonomy to build your team however you see fit. And Marcus? Yes? I want you to hire people for their talent, not their degrees or appearance. Marcus smiled. You can count on me. 6 months later, Marcus was back in the United States, now as technical director of Yamamoto Industries America. The company set up in Chicago, in a modern industrial complex. One of the first things Marcus did was visit his old company. American Motors, Inc. had been sold and was struggling. Marcus looked up Brian, who had become general manager after Richard left. Marcus, I can't believe you're back. Hi, Brian, how are you? Man, facing a lot of challenges. The company never recovered after you left. And the team? Betty? The cleaning staff? Betty's still here. She'll be over the moon when she hears you're back. Marcus found Betty in the cafeteria. She hugged him and cried with emotion. My boy! Look how handsome you are, all dressed up. Marcus was wearing a fine suit and driving an imported car. Betty, you haven't changed a bit. Oh, honey, so much has changed here. The company isn't the same. Betty, I have an offer for you. What offer? I'm setting up a new company here in the US. I need someone I trust to run the cafeteria. Would you be interested? Betty couldn't believe what she was hearing. Honey, are you serious? Absolutely. With a salary 3 times higher than my current one. Mrs. Betty accepted on the spot. In the following months, Marcus built his team. He hired some skilled engineers, but also gave opportunities to people from humble backgrounds who showed talent. One of the first employees he hired was Jamal, a 22-year-old black man who worked as a mechanic's assistant in a neighborhood garage, but had technical training and exceptional knowledge. Jamal, would you like to work as an engineering assistant? Mr. Marcus, I don't have an engineering degree, but you have talent. That's what matters. Marcus also hired Jessica, a young graduate engineer who had been unemployed for 2 years and was working as a store clerk. Jessica, why did you stop looking for jobs in the field? Mr. Marcus, after 100 resumes with no response, I gave up. Apparently, the market has no room for women in engineering. With me, it does. Would you accept being our project coordinator? Jessica cried with emotion. Yamamoto Industries America grew quickly. In 2 years, it was already one of the leading companies in the sector in the country. Marcus introduced a revolutionary policy. Every employee, regardless of position, could suggest technical improvements. The best ideas were implemented, and their authors received recognition and bonuses. One day, Marcus received an unexpected visit. Richard, his former manager. Marcus, can I talk to you? Marcus welcomed him into his office, now much larger and more luxurious than Richard's old one. Of course, Richard. What do you need? Richard was visibly embarrassed. Marcus, I came here to apologize. Apologize? For the 12 years I wasted your talent. For how I treated you. You deserved so much more. Marcus stayed silent for a moment. "Richard, I accept your apology. But you know you didn't have to come here for that." "Actually, I did. I also came to ask if you might have an opportunity for me at your company." Marcus was surprised. "You want to work with me?" "Marcus, I've learned a lot these years. I've learned that talent has no color, no social background, and that a good leader recognizes and values people for what they can do." Marcus thought for a few minutes. "Richard, I can give you a chance, but not as a manager, as a quality coordinator. I'll take any position, Marcus. And there's one condition." "What?" "You'll work directly with Jamal, that young man I hired from the garage. He'll be your supervisor." Richard swallowed hard but nodded. "All right. Richard, do you understand the symbolism of this?" "I understand perfectly, and I think it's fair." 3 years later, Yamamoto Industries America had become a success story in the country. The company was known not just for product quality, but for its innovative human resources policies. Marcus was invited to give a lecture at the Michigan Institute of Technology, his former college. "My name is Marcus Anthony Jenkins," he said to an audience of 200 students. 15 years ago, I graduated from this university. For 2 years, I looked for work as an engineer. I couldn't even get an interview." The audience listened in silence. "I accepted a job as a janitor at a motor company. I spent 12 years cleaning the floors of the lab where other engineers worked. Some students shifted uncomfortably. But I never stopped studying, I never stopped dreaming, and when the opportunity came, I was ready." Marcus told his whole story, from fixing engines late at night to founding Yamamoto Industries America. "What I want to tell you is this: prejudice exists, injustice exists, but talent always finds a way." At the end of the lecture, a young black student approached him. "Professor Marcus, may I ask a question?" "Of course. Do you think things have changed? That it would be different today?" Marcus paused for a moment. "They've changed a lot, but not enough yet. That's why you all are so important. You're the generation that will complete this change." "How?" "By being excellent at what you do, by demanding respect, and when you reach leadership positions, remembering to give opportunities to those with talent, no matter their background." 2 years later, Marcus received an invitation that moved him deeply to be the commencement speaker for the engineering class at the Michigan Institute of Technology. On graduation day, watching dozens of young people receive their diplomas, Marcus remembered his own graduation 15 years earlier. Back then, he had been full of dreams and expectations that seemed to have been crushed. "Dear graduates," he said in his speech, "today you're receiving a diploma that represents much more than technical knowledge. It represents the opportunity to change the world." Marcus looked at the audience and saw faces of all colors and social backgrounds. "Some of you will have immediate opportunities, others will have to fight harder. But never forget, what defines your success isn't the opportunities you receive, but how you respond to challenges." After the ceremony, Marcus was chatting with some professors when a newly graduated young engineer approached him. "Mr. Jenkins, my name is Tyler. I graduated today." "Congratulations, Tyler." "Mr. Jenkins, I wanted to thank you." "Thank me for what?" "For the inspiration. I also come from a humble background, and I faced struggles too. Your story gave me the strength to keep going." Marcus smiled. "Tyler, do you have a job yet?" "No, sir. I'm looking." "Stop by Yamamoto Industries tomorrow. We'll talk." Tyler couldn't believe it. "Mr. Jenkins, are you serious?" "Completely. But Tyler..." "Yes. If I hire you, promise me one thing." "Anything." "When you reach a leadership position, remember to give opportunities to other young people like you." "I promise, Mr. Jenkins." 10 years later, Marcus had become a national reference in people management and technological innovation. Yamamoto Industries America was one of the most respected companies in the country. In an interview for a business magazine, the reporter asked, "Mr. Jenkins, what's the secret to Yamamoto's success?" "There's no secret. It's just about treating people with respect and valuing talent wherever it comes from." "But that's not common in the American market." "It should be. The United States loses so much talent because of foolish prejudices. Is there anything you'd change about your journey? Marcus thought for a moment. Yes. I would have spoken sooner about my background. I stayed silent for 12 years because I was afraid, but fear stops us from showing our worth. And what's your message for young professionals facing prejudice? First, always prepare. Study, train, because when opportunity comes, you have to be ready. Second, never accept less than you deserve. And third, when you reach the top, don't forget those left behind. That same year, Marcus was invited to receive the Social Entrepreneur of the Year award. At the ceremony in Chicago, prominent business leaders, politicians, and social figures were present. "This award isn't mine," Marcus said in his acceptance speech. "It belongs to all the Jamals, Jessicas, Tylers, and so many other talents I've had the privilege to discover and develop." In the audience, Dorothy, now 78, cried with pride seeing her son recognized nationally. "When I was a janitor," Marcus continued, "I thought my story was about injustice. Now I realize it was about purpose. I needed to go through that experience to learn to value every person for their potential." After the ceremony, Marcus was approached by a young journalist. "Mr. Jenkins, Marcus, don't you feel anger toward the people who held you back for so many years? Anger is a feeling that consumes the one who feels it, not the one who deserves it. I chose to turn my pain into purpose." "And what would you say to Richard, your old manager?" Marcus smiled. "I'd say thank you. He taught me how not to lead, and now he's learning how to lead the right way." Indeed, Richard had become one of Yamamoto Industries' best coordinators, known for his dedication to uncovering talent at every level of the company. By the end of that year, Marcus made an important decision: to create a foundation offering scholarships to low-income students pursuing engineering degrees. "Miss Dorothy," he said to his mother, "I want to use some of my money to help other young people like I once was." "My son, your father would be so proud." The Marcus Jenkins Foundation started small, with just 10 scholarships in its first year. But a decade later, it had graduated over 1,000 engineers. One of the first scholarship recipients was Deshawn, a young black man from Southside Chicago who dreamed of becoming an aerospace engineer. "Mr. Jenkins," Deshawn said on the day he received the scholarship, "how can I ever thank you for this opportunity?" "Deshawn, you don't have to thank me. Just promise me you'll use your knowledge to do good." "I promise, Mr. Jenkins." "And Deshawn, when you graduate, I want you to remember one thing." "What?" "Your worth isn't determined by where you were born or the color of your skin. It's determined by what you do with the talents God gave you." 15 years later, Deshawn had become the chief engineer of the country's largest aerospace company and ran a mentorship program for young people from underserved communities. Marcus, now 55, was still leading Yamamoto Industries America, which had grown into a multinational with branches in 8 countries. One Monday morning, Marcus was in his office when he received a call from Takashi Yamamoto, now the global president of the company. "Marcus, I have a proposal for you." "I'm listening, Mr. Yamamoto. We want you to take over as global president of Yamamoto Industries." Marcus was silent for a few seconds. "Mr. Yamamoto, would that mean moving to Japan?" "No. We want to relocate the global headquarters to the United States. The company's growth in recent years has been largely due to the model you developed there." Marcus could hardly believe it. From janitor to global president of a multinational in 20 years. "Mr. Yamamoto, I accept, but on one condition." "What is it?" "I want to implement the American model of talent management across all our branches worldwide." That was exactly our intention. 2 years later, Marcus stood in Tokyo, presenting Yamamoto Industries' results to shareholders from around the world. "In the last 5 years," he said in fluent English, "our company has grown by 300%. That wasn't a coincidence. It was the result of a simple philosophy: valuing talent wherever it may be." In the audience, executives from dozens of countries listened intently. "When I took over as president, we launched the Global Talent Program. Today, we have engineers who started as factory workers, directors who began as interns, and leaders from every social and ethnic background. At the end of the presentation, a German executive asked, "Mr. Jenkins, how did you discover this management philosophy?" Marcus smiled. "I didn't discover it, I lived it. For 12 years I was an overlooked talent. I learned firsthand what it means to have potential, but no opportunity. When I finally got my chance, I vowed that no talent would ever go to waste in my company." That night, alone in his Tokyo hotel room, Marcus called his mother back in the United States. "Mom, how are you?" "I'm good, son. I saw you on TV today, speaking Japanese." Marcus laughed. "Mom, I wanted to tell you something." "What is it?" "Remember when I left the United States 20 years ago? You said sometimes we have to be brave to change our lives." "I remember." "You were right, but today I realized something. Sometimes we have to be brave not to change our own lives, but to change the lives of others." Dorothy was moved. "My son, your father always said engines have a soul. I think you've discovered that companies do too." "And what soul is that, Mom?" "The soul of the people who work in them." Marcus hung up the phone with tears in his eyes. His mother, with her simple wisdom, had perfectly summed up everything he'd learned. The next day, Marcus announced his boldest decision yet, creating the Yamamoto Institute for Human Development, a global organization dedicated to identifying and nurturing talent in underserved communities worldwide. "Our goal," he said at the press conference, "is to ensure no talent goes to waste for lack of opportunity anywhere in the world." The institute began with projects in the favelas of Chicago, the outskirts of Detroit, impoverished neighborhoods in London, and rural communities in India. Within 5 years, over 10,000 young people had benefited from its programs. One of the most remarkable stories was Fatima's, a young woman from Senegal who had designed a low-cost engine for water pumps but lacked the resources to develop her idea. The institute funded her project, and today, Fatima runs a company that brings clean water to millions across Africa. Marcus, now globally recognized as one of history's greatest business leaders, never forgot his roots. Every month he returned to the US and visited the old American Motors Inc., which had been acquired by Yamamoto and transformed into a training center. Where he once worked as a janitor, now stood a technical school offering free courses to low-income youth. "Mr. Marcus," one young student asked during a visit, "is it true you worked here as a janitor?" "It's true." "And you weren't angry?" "At first I was, but then I realized anger builds nothing. What builds is the determination to be better and to help others be better too." At 60, Marcus decided to write a book telling his story. From Factory Floor to World Leader became an international bestseller. At the book launch in Chicago, Marcus spoke to an audience of 2,000. "This book isn't about me," he said. "It's about all of us who've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or told we weren't enough. It's about the strength inside every person, just waiting for a chance to shine." In the front row sat Dorothy, now 88, still proud of the son she'd raised alone. "My son," she said after the event, "do you know which part of your story makes me proudest?" "Which part, Mom?" "It's not that you became a company president. It's that you kept the heart of the boy I raised." Marcus hugged his mother, knowing she was right. All the success in the world meant nothing if he'd lost his humanity. In the book's final chapter, Marcus wrote, "I've learned that success isn't measured by how high we climb, but by how many people we help rise with us. That true power isn't in being respected for your position, but in using that position to give voice to the voiceless, and that the greatest revolution we can make is to treat every person with the dignity they deserve, no matter what." Today at 65, Marcus remains global chairman of Yamamoto Industries, but his greatest legacy isn't the company's profits or the awards he's won. It's the thousands of lives he's changed worldwide, proving that when talent is given a chance, it always blooms. Every morning, when Marcus arrives at his office on the 40th floor of Yamamoto Industries headquarters in Chicago, he looks out the window and remembers the janitor he once was, mopping the floors of the lab where other engineers worked. But now he smiles because he knows his story proves a simple yet powerful truth. It doesn't matter where you start, but where you choose to go. And even more importantly, how many people you bring along on that journey. End of story. Now tell me, dear listener, what did you think of Marcus's story? Do you believe stories like this still happen today? Do you know anyone who's been through something similar? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories. Thank you for joining us.